In April 1945, American forces pushed deeper into German-held territory as Hitler's armies crumbled in disorganized retreat. Within weeks, on May 8th, the Third Reich would sign its unconditional surrender to the Allies. Advancing toward Berlin, U.S. soldiers encountered a landscape devastated by relentless aerial bombardment and a population worn down by years of war. What they could not yet foresee was the horror awaiting them amid the ruins, a grim reality that would profoundly shock General Eisenhower and etch an indelible mark on history. On April 12, 1945, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, personally visited the newly liberated Ohrdruf concentration camp in Germany, the first Nazi camp encountered by American troops. Days later, in a letter to General George C. Marshall, Eisenhower wrote, "The things I saw beggar belief. The visual evidence and the verbal testimony of starvation, cruelty, and bestiality were so overpowering as to leave me a bit sick." Determined that the world should know the truth, Eisenhower ordered photographers, journalists, and even congressional delegations to tour the camps and document the horrors. He understood that without undeniable proof, many would struggle to accept the full scale of the atrocities committed. Many reporters who entered the liberated camps were left in profound shock, struggling to comprehend the sights before them. "These are the foul, wretched remnants of human beings," one wrote. "Human beings, indistinguishable in their essence from you or me, reduced to skeletal shadows by systematic depravity." The world was soon confronted with irrefutable evidence of the greatest crime ever committed against humanity. Grainy photographs and newsreels revealed tons of confiscated clothing piled in warehouses, mountains of empty shoes, and thousands of suitcases hastily packed for what victims had been told was resettlement, but which proved to be a one-way journey to death. These haunting images laid bare the industrial scale of the massacre. The footage and photographs sent shockwaves across the globe. Yet the question lingered, was this discovery truly a surprise to the Allied leaders? Had Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and their governments been unaware of the mounting reports of mass extermination that had reached them long before the camps were overrun? Could leaders like Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, or even Charles de Gaulle truly have remained ignorant of Hitler's systematic extermination of Europe's Jews, an operation coordinated over 4 brutal years? Did they exhaust every possible means to bring Nazi war criminals to justice during and immediately after the conflict? These are questions long sidestepped in mainstream accounts of the war, questions that touch on one of the Second World War's most enduring taboos. This is the story we set out to explore. In truth, the Allies possessed credible intelligence about the horrors unfolding in the camps far earlier than the public narrative often suggests. Reports from Polish resistance fighters, escaped prisoners, intercepted communications, and eyewitness accounts reached London, Washington, and other capitals as early as 1941-1942. From the Warsaw Ghetto, whispers of unimaginable atrocity began to filter out, carried by couriers who risked everything to alert the world to the gathering storm of genocide. Poland, midsummer 1942. Deep in the heart of Nazi-occupied Warsaw, inside a nondescript building shrouded in secrecy, a clandestine meeting of Polish resistance leaders was underway. The atmosphere was tense, the situation had become dire. For weeks, the Germans had been systematically dismantling underground networks, rounding up thousands of political opponents, intellectuals, and suspected resistors. These captives were loaded onto convoys and transported 300 kilometers south to a newly expanded camp bearing the name Auschwitz. At the time, Auschwitz was known primarily as a brutal concentration camp for Polish prisoners. Conditions there were already notorious for their extreme harshness, with reports filtering back of relentless forced labor, starvation, and widespread mistreatment. What the resistance could scarcely imagine was how this site would soon evolve into the epicenter of an even darker enterprise. The leaders of Poland's armed underground were deeply worried about their comrades now imprisoned in Auschwitz. Reports of brutal conditions had begun to trickle back, and the resistance desperately sought ways to re-establish contact, to learn the fate of their men and, if possible, offer aid. Various proposals were debated around the table, smuggling messages, bribing guards, even attempting a risky rescue. But none seemed feasible against the camp's tightening security. Then Witold Pilecki, a seasoned officer in the underground and a man known for his unflinching courage, broke the impasse. While others hesitated, he put forward a plan that stunned the room. He would deliberately allow himself to be captured during a street roundup, ensuring his deportation to Auschwitz. Once inside, he intended to locate the imprisoned resistance members, gather intelligence on the camp's inner workings, and lay the groundwork for an organized uprising from within. Against all reason, Pilecki volunteered to infiltrate hell itself, and remarkably, the underground approved his audacious mission. Pilecki formally requested the mission, one that would see him deliberately imprisoned in Auschwitz. His objectives were clear: infiltrate the camp, reconnect with the incarcerated resistance fighters, gather critical intelligence, and organize a large-scale insurrection from within, ultimately aiming to liberate the prisoners. He knew the Germans were planning another major roundup in Warsaw's Żoliborz district. To ensure his capture, Pilecki positioned himself there, adopting a false identity and waiting in a targeted area. On the morning of September 19, 1940, his plan succeeded. Nazi forces cordoned off the neighborhood and began systematic arrests. They stormed the building at 40 Wojska Polskiego Street, climbed the stairs, and knocked on the door of apartment 7, where Witold Pilecki stood ready to be taken. Just as he had planned, Witold Pilecki was arrested and deported. On September 21, 1940, after enduring 24 suffocating hours packed into cattle wagons alongside hundreds of others, he reached the camp and stepped into a nightmarish new reality. Over the entrance gate, he saw the infamous inscription, Arbeit macht frei, work sets you free. In the autumn of 1940, Auschwitz remained a relatively small concentration camp. Its prisoners were then mostly Poles. They were sentenced to grueling forced labor. There were 1,800 of them, held under relentless surveillance, encircled by watchtowers and isolated from the outside world by endless coils of barbed wire. From that day forward, Pilecki, the voluntary infiltrator, became simply prisoner 4859. What he witnessed next left him reeling: the brutal daily existence of the deportees. The workforce itself consisted of the prisoners, reduced to nothing more than enslaved labor. When Pilecki saw that death did not come from hunger or cold, it could still strike without warning, at the whim of an SS guard. Every day, summary executions were carried out at the end of a narrow alley, against a wall that became known as the Wall of Death. The concentration camp was a realm of pure arbitrariness, even when rules existed. Terror reigned supreme. The law belonged to the strongest. What horrified Pilecki most, however, was the discovery that one group of prisoners suffered even greater cruelty than the rest. In 1940, this group remained a minority in the camp, yet the SS had already marked them as their primary victims, the Jews. Jewish deportees were assigned the most punishing labor and endured living conditions far worse than those of other prisoners. In every way, they were singled out for differential and far harsher treatment. To gather intelligence and build a clandestine network, Pilecki carefully selected men he trusted, fellow members of the Polish resistance he had known before his arrest, along with others he had encountered outside the camp. His ultimate goal was clear: to ensure the horrors unfolding inside Auschwitz reached the outside world. To alert the world to the atrocities inside, Pilecki knew he had to escape, a feat that seemed utterly impossible. Auschwitz was designed as an impregnable fortress. The prisoners were under constant SS scrutiny, hemmed in by a double electrified barbed wire fence, ringed by watchtowers, and sealed behind thick concrete walls. No one in theory could break out. Yet Pilecki devised a daring plan, made possible only by the extraordinary courage of his comrades who were willing to risk everything to help him. One of those men was Kazimierz Piechowski. At just 19 years old, Kazimierz Piechowski began devising one of the most audacious escapes in Auschwitz history. Fear gripped them all. This perilous operation had slim odds of success. Yet Pilecki urged them forward. Though he chose to stay inside the camp to continue bearing witness to the horrors, Piechowski's breakout could serve as the vital conduit to alert the outside world. It was Stanisław Jaster who approached Pilecki and made the introduction. Their escape was considered doomed from the outset, a mission with almost no hope of success. Out of caution, Pilecki refused to hand over any written report that could be discovered if they were caught. Instead, he dictated the crucial message to one of Piechowski's companions, forcing him to commit it to memory. "He wrote it down for me," the companion later recalled. "He told me everything, every detail." Then Pilecki instructed, "Read it 10 times. "What? 10 times? "Yes, 10 times. Stanisław read it 10 times. "Now," Pilecki said, "recite it back without looking." And he could. "Good," Pilecki nodded. "What you carry in your head, that is your report." With the intelligence safely memorized, Piechowski and his 2 accomplices slipped away toward the camp warehouse.